Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you are in the world, and welcome to today's webinar, Advanced Analytics, Transform Your Data into Business Value, hosted by Data Informed and sponsored by R Systems. My name is Steve Paul. I'm your moderator today. We have just a few announcements before we begin. This webinar is designed to be interactive between you and our presenters, and later in the program we'll ask for your feedback. You can participate in our Q&A session by asking questions about the information presented in this webinar at any time. Just type your question into the text box located at the bottom left of our console and then click the Submit Question button. We'll answer as many questions as time permits after our presentations. Slides will advance automatically throughout the event, and you can download a PDF copy of our presentation by clicking on the Download Slide link in the resource box. At this time, we recommend you disable your pop-up blockers. And if you're experiencing any technical problems, please visit our webinar help guide by clicking on the Help icon on the bottom right of our console. If slides are not advancing, please press the F5 key on your keyboard to refresh your browser. And now on to our presentation, Advanced Analytics, Transform Your Data into Business Value. Discussing today's topic will be Subhash Khatri, Senior Vice President, Analytics and Strategy with Green Dot Corp., and Khosrow Habsabi, Chief Data Scientist with R Systems. First, we'll hear from Khosrow.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining this webinar. The topic of the presentation is achieving analytics sophistication, and toward the end, Subhash from Rushguard will talk about the analytics journey that they have gone through, and we'll share that with you. To start, let me tell you briefly a little bit about R Systems. It's a global technology and analytics consulting company founded in 1993. The focus 2 years has been on software development and product engineering. In the last few years, we have created a practice around data engineering, analytics, and data science. Let me talk a little bit about some estimates and figures that I'm sure all of you have encountered and heard, especially in the last several years, about big data and explosion of the data. So IDC has estimated that by 2020, data production will be 44 times greater than what it was in 2009. And Gartner has estimated that global BI and analytics market would grow to something like $23 billion. And data-driven enterprises are set to achieve an additional $65 billion in productivity benefits. Focusing on advanced analytics markets, the estimates are, according to Gartner, that by 2018, 50% of large enterprises globally will compete using some sort of advanced analytics and proprietary algorithms. And according to Markets and Market, advanced analytics market will grow to $29-30 billion mark in 2019, which you can put this in comparison with estimates for BI and analytics, and it's been like drastically things are going toward advanced analytics in the future. This number was about $7 billion in 2014, so the estimate is like almost 4 times more. What is the state of data and analytics today? So if you go back about 10 years or several years, it was that not every vertical or every tier of company in different verticals were that much focused on analytics. There has been industries like financial, e-commerce, or telco that more than 20 years they have been doing some of this stuff and have had some of those challenges. And this was being basically considered as a competitive advantage, analytics and data-driven decisioning. However, nowadays, in the last couple of years and going forward, it's just could be for many companies just continuing to remain relevant. As you see the competitions that has surfaced, for example, in retail, and a lot of retail companies are in trouble. And this could happen to many other organizations. So what differentiates and can give a kind of extra help to the companies in the future is how best they leverage their data and analytics. So that's why, the last 15, 10 years, people have been talking about data as an asset, and the new one is data is the new oil, and its competitive advantage is staying relevant. And some people basically saying we are in intelligence age, and we're going to intelligence age from information age, because of the machine learning, AI, and other technologies that are basically are coming around, and companies are competing to leverage those technologies. So the problem today is that many organizations, and when we talk about organizations, there are top-tier organizations, some verticals that are pretty advanced using some of these technologies. There are other verticals that even the top tier haven't leveraged data to the best they could. And then we have different tiers like medium and smaller size companies. What they struggle with is how to put the data assets they have, the data and technology infrastructure and analytics, to the right use. And that's everybody's challenge. In the last several years, people have been assembling, data lakes or putting and collecting the data. But I think in the last couple of years and going forward, it's like, what are we going to do with some of this data? So there are some classical use cases that the data could be leveraged for, but there are a lot of other new use cases that it's the challenge for some of the organizations to explore those and identify those. So the kind of questions that organizations, whether big or a small or a business unit in a big organization may ask themselves is that, are they executing the right data-driven strategy? Choosing the right platform infrastructure that's suited for long-term. Are they making those selections right? And would those data infrastructure be relevant, going forward 3-5 years from now? What are the promising use cases, business use cases to consider? As I said, there are traditional or classical use cases of using data science and advanced analytics, and there are many new ones. How to map those use cases to the underlying data and analytics, that's where the analytic and data scientists come to the picture. How do you go from all these varieties of data, using what techniques, and how to leverage those to solve those business challenges. Monetizing existing new data set, that's another challenge, especially for data native companies, as always, and for some classic companies. How to get the talent, the right talent and the skills, and that's something everybody has heard about, the kind of challenges the companies, even at the top tier, face to get the right skill set. And then creating new data products. So these are some of the questions that today organizations are asking themselves, and this is after, they have created data lakes or they have put data infrastructure in place. So conceptually, everybody should have seen this kind of prism of going from data to decisions, and data is you can think of it as like parts of a car, and the data infrastructure would be like all the screws or bolts and glues that will keep all of these parts together, and then the analytics would be like the engine that will pull everything forward and directs it, to go forward and to the right direction, based on which decisions could be made. So every company, a lot of companies have gone through this, and they may have had several years of journey to do some of it, and still it stays as a journey because they continuously have to improve their processes and infrastructure and their analytics to stay competitive. So to assess organizations that are committing to this kind of journey, there are like analytic maturity models that are out there. The one that we use basically has or measures organizations based on three components. One is the data management sophistication. So that has to do with how readily the data is available for different stakeholders in the organization. Is the data management infrastructure really there for innovation? Can people use it to get to what they want to solve a question or a business problem right away without going through the hassle of, getting permissions or converting the data or getting it from operational system? The skill, experience, and all the tools. Another component or dimension is analytic sophistication that I go through it a little bit later on in a slide. And that has to do with the techniques, skill set, expertise that is required to achieve analytic sophistication. And then everything else, we can just put it under one umbrella, which is culture, which happens to be the most important thing. Is the culture in an organization basically promotes and encourages people to do fact-based and data-driven, analytic-based decisions. And that has to do with the executive buy-in, the processes, the industry that the company is in, the leadership, and the competitive landscape. So we're not going to go through, the details, but in terms of analytics maturity, we have like 5 levels to classify organizations roughly into these 5 categories, all the way from beginner to transform. So you can think of beginner, not that they're not using data for anything. No, of course, every organization uses data. It's just that is the culture promoting using the detailed data to make decisions at a tactical or a strategic level, and everybody comes to a meeting supporting what they want to say using the data. In a transform organization, the culture promotes that you have to show based on facts and the data of all sorts what you are basically discussing or you are promoting. And the data infrastructure and analytic and the setup at the Transform organization is focused on innovation, how data can be readily available and people can ask new questions and spend their time solving business problems rather than data plumbing and all of that. So we're talking about data native companies that by nature they have to be really sophisticated. We're talking about Facebook and Googles and Ubers and the kind on the top. And there are financial institutions, big tiers that have been doing this stuff for a while, and they're doing new things with their data, and they are at the advanced to transform level. So when we talked about analytics sophistication, we can plot analytic sophistication on the horizontal axis and versus competitive advantage on the left side. And this is something that probably today we can talk instead of competitive advantage as staying relevant. So I think everybody understands that the analytics brings a competitive advantage, or used to bring, but that has become a little fuzzy. Nowadays, it's just we have to do it to even stay relevant. So on the sophistication, it goes all the way from standard reports to ad hoc reports, OLAP, dashboard that many of you are familiar with, alerts, and then on the dark blue side, which is more advanced analytic and data science kind of oriented, we talk about statistical analysis, forecasting, PAMLI, that stands for predictive analytics, machine learning, and AI, and optimization, how to best use those models and systems to basically optimize the business processes. So different organization on analytic sophistication, almost everybody does something at the bottom here, and many of the more advanced or analytically matured ones do a lot on the top as well. But the point is that transitioning from this so-called basic reactive descriptive analytics to this prescriptive proactive predictive analytics, we require a different skill set, different kind of tool set, and that's what a lot of organizations that are new to this are challenged with. So transitioning to advanced analytics, as I described, it requires different skill sets, a scientific mindset. Not everything that you're going to try with advanced analytics or new algorithm is going to be fruitful. So there are longer project cycles, and the organization should have a scientific mindset, be ready to fail quickly, and don't get upset about it, because not everything is clear cut when you're operating in that range, unless you're using some classical use cases that proving them it's easier. A different analysis tool set, different data infrastructure sometimes is required. As I said, longer project life cycle, different data transformations will be required, and for advanced analytic, really you need to work with the most granular, detailed aspect of the data. So these are some of the challenges of transitioning. So we talked about classical use cases. These are some of the use cases that, for example, last 20 years or so or more, financial industry, which has been a kind of pioneer in using advanced analytics, and telcos or e-commerce, people have used things like targeted marketing, cross-sell, upsell, fraud detection, real-time fraud detection, like for credit cards and payment cards, customer acquisition, product recommendation, propensity modeling in general. And if we look at it across different functions in an organization, this is how we can kind of assign these classical use cases. But there are so many new use cases that people are coming up with in organizations, especially the ones that create a lot of measurements on their customers, devices, locations, and all of that. What are other things that could be done that may be a kind of aligned in general with, targeted marketing and all of that, but new ways of doing it. And one last thing that I would like to talk about is that if we put analytics sophistication across volume of data, we talk about large versus big data, then the rectangle that covers traditional BI, it would be sitting right here, which is basic analytics on large data. And then transitioning to advanced analytics would require, as I said, different skill set and all of that, but it's staying still with the large data. But what if you're already doing advanced analytics and you have to transition to big data? And that also requires, and this Thunderbolts illustrate those, that a kind of improved skill set or complementary skill set would be required to transition across these boundaries as well. And whether you do basic analytics on big data, to be able to do more advanced analytics on big data requires complementary tools and a skill set and all of that. So this is basically what the challenges are for some organization. Either they're transitioning to big data and they have to refresh their skill set or infrastructure, or they're transitioning from advanced analytics or traditional BI to the big data, and that requires also infrastructure improvement and skill set improvement. So with that, I would like to stop here before we start the RushGuard journey on analytics to answer some questions. So please, Steve.
Sure. Thanks very much, Khosrow. Excellent presentation. We do actually have a couple of questions here before we go to Subhash. So let's get to them. Our first is from Jennifer, who wants to know, should an organization build the data infrastructure first in full and then look for analytics-based use cases or insights, or do selected use cases and build the data infrastructure gradually? What do you recommend?
As always, the answer is it depends. So during my exposure in last 20 years dealing with all sorts of companies in different verticals, there is always, some business unit or group of people that will come up with a proven use case using analytics, and executives will hear about it, and in general that will translate into other organization or business units within the organization to come and basically demand for better infrastructure or skill set to do things similar in their unit. There are some cases also that the kind of like things you can do with data is a kind of no-brainer. So people will put together the data infrastructure first, knowing that there would be definitely proven use cases coming out of it because of experience of other organization or what it's been proven. So both cases basically will apply, but most of the times there are pockets of proven use cases that eventually justifies building a bigger data infrastructure and more powerful one for everybody to use.
Okay, thank you. Michael was wondering if he could get your contact information.
I think those will be provided at the last slide and in the PDF of the presentation. So yes, they can definitely get that. So I think, Steve, I think it would be good to ask Subhash to continue on the RushGuard journey in analytics. Okay,
let's hear for Subhash. I think he was having some phone issues, so we want to make sure that Subhash, are you there? He was connecting over to another line, so maybe while we're waiting, are you there, Subhash? Okay. In the interim, Khosrow, there was another question here, maybe
Sure.
Similar to the first one. Should an organization transition gradually from basic analytics use cases to advanced analytics use cases, or can they be done at the same time?
Again, there are instances of both. A lot of organizations naturally do basic analytics and BI, and at some point in time, they would like to cross over and do more advanced analytic use cases. So we have seen a lot of those, but there are some organizations that basically do both of them at the same time. So they have so-called data scientists focused on doing more advanced analytic use cases based on whatever data is available. And then there are traditional analysts and business analysts that do the BI part. So we definitely have seen both of those.
Okay, thanks. And now I believe we do have Subhash Khatri here with us. So Subhash, we'll just turn it over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here with Cass. Good day to everyone. What I would like to do here today is speak about the analytics journey that Rushcard has been through in the last several years, and build on what Cass has talked about in the last 20 minutes. Just to give you a background, Rushcard, we are a consumer financial services company. We issue prepaid debit cards, and we serve mainly financially underserved customers in the United States. We were acquired by Green Dot, which is the largest issuer of prepaid cards in the United States, a few months ago in February 2017. And a major reason for our success in the last several years has been able to use immense amounts of data that we have, and our journey continues. Just to give you a sense of what Rushcard is from a demographic perspective, we, as I mentioned, mainly serve financially underserved customers, and a large percentage of our customers are unbanked or underbanked customers, which in economic balance means that they do not have bank accounts. A majority, 70% of them are females, and a large portion of our customer base is African Americans. And typically our customers are on the younger side, less than 35 years on an average, which also means that they are very savvy from online perspective, and they love to use their smartphones and so on. As I mentioned, our customers are unbanked, which means that they use our product as a bank account. They deposit their paychecks through direct deposit directly onto our card, and pretty much use our prepaid debit card for most of their financial use. Most of them live in urban areas. They have a household income of less than $30,000, and most of them have a high school degree. On an average, we have fewer college graduates than the U.S. population. The reason I'm going through these demographics is because this forms an immense base of data that is available to us to understand who our customers are, how to market to them, and how to interact with them. So moving on, what other types of data do we use? In addition to the demographic data, we use data elements that we capture from our customer behavior, which includes data assets like the interaction that our customers have with us, either through our online assets, which would be our website or social media sites, or through our other traditional assets like customers calling into our customer servicing centers. We have immense amount of data of our customers when they use our products. Every time they use our card to make a purchase, we capture that. We understand how they load our card, either through their paychecks or through other means. And in addition to that, we also have data related to their risk type of activities, which would be disputes and frauds. Now, all of this data is immensely useful, and truth be said, we do not use all of it to the extent that we should. But then we do use it. We've used it for understanding the value of our customers. We've used the data to create predictive models, and we use it for financial analytics and forecasting. So going back to what Cass has said in terms of our customer journey, what I would say is that we started our journey several years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, and we were at a beginner stage. Today, where we are more, I would say, somewhere in the realm of advanced analytics. Obviously, are we where we should be? The answer is no, we still want to improve because we want to move from advanced stage to what Cass had described as transformed state. We want to continuously improve our analytics. We want to continuously incorporate more and more of data that we have in our decision making. And at the end of the day, we want to improve our decision making. And what do we need for that? We need to build best-in-class and data analytics system, which means data infrastructure as well as the tools that we use, which would include tools for use for BI and reporting. And to do all of this, what we need is best-in-class talent. And I would say that you cannot, all of these are needed to get to the transformed state of analytics. If any one of these components is missing, it's going to be very difficult for us or for any organization to get there. As a final note, what I would like to do is to use a very specific functional area where we made this journey over the last several years. And this is the area which impacts pretty much all the organizations, whether they are in financial services or in any other consumer marketing area, which is basically customer acquisition. Several years ago, our customer acquisition was a very simple channel. We would have advertisements on TV, and customers would respond to it by either calling into our call centers or by putting in applications online. The level of intelligence that we had was very limited. We were at the beginner stage. We would have weekly reports as to how many customers applied, how many we approved, and so on. However, as we moved through the journey and also with the advent of online channels, both our functions became more complex. We started using paid search. We started using social media. We started using affiliate marketing. And in addition to that, our analytics also became more sophisticated. We developed analytical tools. We did analytics to understand what was our cost per acquisition. We tried to understand how the customer lifetime value was, depending on different demographic segments, as well as different channels of acquisition. And we started using these metrics to alter our acquisition strategies. However, we were still changing our tactics only once a month or so. And then we moved on to even more sophistication, where we started honing on micro-segments, where we would look at not only paid search as a channel, but we would look at each of several tens or hundreds of keywords that we used, and we would analyze them to understand if we were being profitable and if we were getting the right type of customers. And the degree of decision-making moved from once a month to every week and sometimes even on to a daily basis. So as you can see that we moved from a very, very simple analytical tools to make very simple decisions to a more complex and sophisticated phase in our acquisitions, marketing, and optimization. And the journey continues. We are going to, our next stage is to start using real-time predictive analytics. We would like to get into big data and use of artificial intelligence and machine learning to make sure that we continue to improve and remain competitive in this industry. Hopefully, this has given everyone a sense of how analytics can be really used as a very significant competitive advantage to maintain profitability and to increase profitability. With that, I would like to thank you all and also open up for any questions.
Okay, thanks very much. Excellent presentation as well. Before we go on to our audience Q&A, though, we'd also like to ask our audience to please fill out this feedback form that is now appearing on your desktop. To complete the form, just press the Submit Answer button at the bottom of the page, and we thank you in advance for filling out this form. Your participation in our survey allows us to serve you better in the future. And now on to the question and answer portion of our event. As a reminder, to participate in the Q&A, just type your question into the text box on the bottom left of the console, and again, click the Submit Question button. Looks like we have a number of good questions here. Also want to push out to our audience a couple of important links for more information. Let's see. Our first question here from Bill, who wants to know, regarding Rush Card Journey, how and when do you get executive buy-in, and what did it take to get their buy-in for all this investment?
This is Subhash, and I have to say that as far as the Rush Card Journey in analytics goes, we had CEOs and high-level executives who have come from major financial services firms like JP Morgan and MasterCard and so on. So they were already very well aware of the benefits of having the world-class data analytics infrastructure. So I would say that I was very fortunate that I was dealing with executives who understood what data could get them, and it was fairly easy to convince them to make the investments. However, I can fully understand that there are situations, especially in industries where data is only becoming available in the recent past, where executive buy-in could be more challenging, and there has to be a fairly strong business case to be made to some of the leaders to be able to convince them.
Okay, thank you. Rodolphe wants to know, have you measured in financial terms the gains you have made so far by using the analytics?
Hi, Rodolphe. The answer to that question is yes. We always track all our programs. We always track how analytics are going to result in any changes or any changes in the strategies, any changes in the investments that we make from a marketing perspective, and we always track the benefits of these changes. And what I would say in general, the only way and the best way to prove the value of analytics is to be able to demonstrate an ROI, and it's something that you have to continuously do to be able to get a buy-in from the senior executives.
Okay, thank you. Going back to a Rush Card, do you have a dedicated group of analysts, and what skill sets do they possess?
We do have a dedicated group of analysts. And what I would say is that the skill sets that they have are in a couple of different branches. We have analysts who are dedicated to intelligence and reporting. And then we also have at a high-end analysts who have advanced degrees and qualifications in quantitative areas, and they are focused more on decision sciences type of work, which would mean predictive modeling and so on. And then we have a couple of analysts who are focused on what I term as business analytics, which is understanding the programs that I've talked about, like marketing optimization and so on.
Okay, thank you. Dennis wants to know, could you share a few of the challenges you faced in your analytics journey, like data infrastructure decisions and use cases, et cetera?
Hello, Dennis. The challenges that we face are they are both people as well as technological. The technological challenges are designing the right data infrastructure, making sure that the data infrastructure you design is relatively easy to use and technically compatible with other systems. One of the major challenges that we've always faced, and I have to admit, is that it's not yet fully solved, is to bring in data from diverse sources. We get data from our financial transaction processors. We get data from our online systems. We get data from our customer service centers. And all of this data are sitting in different areas. And to be truly impactful and to get to the most advanced stage of data analytics, it's very critical that all of this data are brought together into a single location. And I have to say that we still have not completed that journey at Rushcall. On the people front, it's the talent. Talent is extremely important. And I have to say that every time we have someone leave our organization, it's not easy to backfill and replace those people for a couple of reasons. One is that you want people with the right type of technical and business sets. And second, in positions like this, it typically takes the new analyst several weeks to several months to come up the learning curve.
Okay, and let's squeeze in one more question here. Oh, actually got a couple here. Gaurav wants to know, from a skill set perspective, are there any certifications that scientists can go for? Any reference on understanding the journey to become a chief data scientist?
This is Kausar. I can answer that. I think there are, there has been a kind of like, for many years, the definition of what data science is, which has been out there under different name and title for, 20 plus years. And a lot of universities nowadays offer some data science program with, focus on analytic and also some computer related courses and all of that. There are organizations that actually provide certification, and there are online courses. So as I, if you want my own opinion, I do not basically say anything for or against any of those programs that privately there are organizations that provide in a few months, let's say, program to teach people what is the requirement for a data scientist and all of that. But I think there are some core skill sets that is required, and some of those are basically a kind of a passion for data, some good computer skills in terms of programming, a kind of scientific mind to be able to think and challenge the status quo, and doing a lot of different things with the data to basically get insights from it. For that, the person has to be creative. So through the years, we haven't found like a particular group of people with a particular degree that suits for data scientists. We have hired people from, let's say, physicists. They have been engineers. But those core skill sets that I mentioned at the beginning, those are like requirements that eventually someone can succeed in the job if they have those core skills, not a particular degree or affiliation.
Okay, and maybe one last one here. If my organization is new to all of this, what is the best way to start or proceed, given all the vendors that are out there?
I can answer to that. Yeah, definitely for an organization that is new to all of this, there is a lot of information out there, a lot of vendors out there. There are a lot of open source tools out there. Many people out there that basically are in the analytical space, or at least claim to be in some kind of analyst. So it's pretty confusing. So what we would recommend is basically, going to the conferences that your peers go to and learn about the lessons or experiences they've had, similar to, for example, what you heard here from Rushguard, because they have done a part of the journey and they know about some challenges and the pitfalls. And also the other approach is that to bring in some third-party organization to make an assessment of, what are the kind of business use cases that are kind of more fruitful for your industry and particular enterprise to do first, and build up that kind of a bunch of success stories to convince, for example, your management or executives in terms of if they are not on board with all of this. So it kind of like agile approach, coming up with the use cases that can be proven and shown, and build on those success stories to get further investment and interest in the organization to go forward. So it's a tough thing, but there are organizations out there that can help you, and conferences that can guide you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Unfortunately, that's going to be all the time we have for this session. So if we didn't get to your question during our live broadcast, someone will follow up with you over the next few business days. And for more information, here's a series of key contacts where you can reach out and ask questions and get some more information for. And unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today's webcast. Advanced Analytics, Transform Your Data into Business Value, hosted by Data Informed and sponsored by our systems. Shortly after this live event, we'll send you an email reminder so you can access this presentation on demand. And on behalf of our guest, Subhash Khatri, Senior Vice President, Analytics and Strategy with Green Dot Corp, and Dr. Kozlo Habashi, Chief Data Scientist with R Systems. We want to thank you for your time, and have a great day.